All right, Jacksonville Jaguars draft recap. They ended up with 13 total picks in this draft class. One of the most we've seen. The average team typically gets 8 draft picks just due to comp picks. So they made an effort to get more than just the average 8. They got 5 additional draft picks than what the average team deals with. So plenty to get to here. We're talking about Jacksonville. And the first one was Anton Harrison, who, listen, personally, I wasn't a huge fan of Anton Harrison. That's a me thing. My evaluation, I was a lot lower on him than other people were. So if you're a Jaguars fan, you're probably just going to ignore my evaluation and pay attention to other people's evaluation, which is that he's a solid tackle. And, he was 31st on the consensus big board. That's what you see on the screen is, the player, what position they play, where they were drafted. So he was drafted 27th, but was 31st on the consensus big board. So you could argue, okay, it's a 4-pick reach. I'm not going to be mad about a 4-pick reach. That's totally fine. And a lot of people really liked him as a tackle, and tackles tend to go early. So the fact that he almost fell to where he's, the typical value is, feels like a pretty good thing. And I also think that for Jacksonville, they're trying to compete right now, which is, when you try to do that, sometimes it's okay to draft for need a little bit. I don't love drafting for need. I like to just get good players. But at the same time, with Cam Robinson and Walker Little currently as the projected 2 starters, getting another tackle who I think could actually play either position feels like the right move for me. Help protect your young quarterback. I totally can understand it. We then had Brenton Strange. This was a reach. According to the consensus big board. Again, who knows? Maybe he'll end up being the next Rob Gronkowski, and you'll feel great about it. But he was projected to go 130th. He ends up going at 61st on the actual draft. So looking at his analytics, there's not really much here. I think the one thing that maybe you're liking about him, I think why he was drafted, could be a good run blocking tight end. And that is something that Jaguars value clearly, is being able to run the football. We'll get into that. Well, let's get into that right now with Tank Bigsby, the running back selection, who, was projected to go 84th. He goes 88th. So you're getting fair value from him. This isn't a reach or a steal necessarily. I think people are wondering, why are you going after a running back? Why do you keep drafting running backs? Well, I don't know. In this spot, I'm not mad at it. I like Tank Bigsby as a player. I actually have a whole film study on him, on this channel. If you search Jackson Kruger Sports Tank Bigsby, you can check that out, get more of my thoughts on what he can do. I think he's a good player. I think that he's, I can't remember if I put him on my top 5 running backs list or not, but he was at least like top 7 on that list. If I didn't put him on the list, I put him right off of it because he's very good, and there's a lot of things he brings to the table and some different things than what Travis Etienne does. So sure, they have JaMychal Hasty, they have Dearness Johnson in the room as well, but you could use another guy. One running back doesn't take up the whole amount of snaps. So I don't know. I don't love draft. I would hate it to draft a running back in round 1, but drafting running back 88 overall, I'm not going to fight on. I'm not going to hate on it too much. I think this is one you can get someone who can be a contributor still with pick number 88. Ventrell Miller, the linebacker, who, again, I look at analytics, and also, that Trent Baalke does not look at analytics. He does not care about that stuff. We saw that with the Trayvon Walker selection. Miller's analytics, not very good. Very poor, actually. So was picked at 121st. He was projected to go 202nd. And this is where I think the Jaguars, these kind of back-to-back picks are honestly a little baffling. And they had a couple of just baffling picks the Jaguars did, in my opinion. This isn't, again, saying it's, is it a good draft or a bad draft is entirely subjective, but this is a draft that when I value things through my team building philosophy, they made a lot of moves that I would not have made, is the way to all phrase it, which, again, could work out for them. There have been moves that I wouldn't have made that have worked out great, so we'll see if the Ventrell Miller one is one of them, but I'm not sure I totally get it. The Tyler Lacey one, so he's another insane reach according to the consensus big board, right? Was projected to go 230th. He goes 130th. So we're talking an 100 spot jump here. I do have to say though, I get why they wanted Tyler Lacey as a player. Someone who, listed as an edge, but is 279 pounds and should be a great run stopper at the edge position day one, essentially, which, we know the Jaguars value given their draft history. They like guys who can stop the run. His run defense analytics, very good. His run defense tape, very good. Not exactly sure that you couldn't have gotten him. I feel like you could have gotten him later, quite frankly. Probably would have made sense, especially like you pick 6 picks later. At least wait 6 picks and do it or something. I don't know. Feels like a bit of a reach there, but at least this one, well, yes, it's probably a reach. It's an understandable reach, and maybe not one that I'm gonna totally hate on too much. Yasir Abdullah is the next guy on the list. Another guy who I thought could do some nice things. This kind of the other way around, though. More of a good pass rusher who could be kind of a third down edge rusher. So, a lot of people wondered, do they go edge in this draft class? Because, while they have Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen, Walker didn't have a great year one. You're hoping for improvements year two, which, he was a project coming in. There's totally reason to believe he could get better. But outside of that, there's a real weakness in that edge rusher position. So even if Allen and Walker both turn into stars, you're still going to want to have another guy come in and play 500 snaps or so. Well, instead, it seems like what they're trying to do is have Lacey and Abdullah maybe each come in and play 250 snaps in specific roles, which is probably the smarter way to play it, I would think. So, while there are definitely reaches, those are reaches that I understand at the very least. And then they got a steal. How about Antonio Johnson? It's a bit confusing because there's 3 safeties, 1 named Antonio Johnson, 2 named Anthony Johnson. So it gets a little confusing there. All play the safety position. But Antonio Johnson, the one who most people consider to be the best of those 3, was projected to be a late second rounder, ends up falling all the way to pick 160. So why did he fall? I really don't know. Again, people don't value the safety position that highly, so maybe that's a part of it. Maybe that factored in. That's just a guess. I can't say for certain if that's the case or not, but I do wonder if that's why he ended up being a sort of a mid-5th round pick instead of the second round pick that people expected. Seems like he should be a very good safety though. Maybe not a star, but feels like he should be someone who could come in and be a starting caliber safety potentially. So that's kind of what I like about that. And, they could probably use, I don't know if they need a safety desperately, but they could use another guy in the room, certainly. We then have another guy who kind of fell to them, Parker Washington. A guy who, listed at 5'9", 204 pounds. So, okay, you're probably viewing him as like a slot receiver, but hey, who loves their slot receivers? Doug Peterson. So really good scheme fit, I think, by that. And then we have, 5 picks that were not in the top 200. So a lot of times these picks are, special teamers or guys you just hope can come through and maybe, eventually do something. Well, you had a couple, first the 2 6-rounders were Christian Braswell and Eric Hallett, 2 defensive backs as well, which, hey, you could use as, there's things to like about, getting extra secondary players. That's a position that does tend to need some depth. So there you go. I'm interested in some of them. Braswell, sort of more of an explosive corner potentially, who, again, that works well for special teams as well. So which one will you do? Remains to be seen. Eric Hallett, you're looking at some reaches here, obviously. I mean, every single one of those players were not projected to be a top 300 pick, and there's only 259 picks. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. But again, do you like some of these? I'm not going to freak out too much about reaching this late in the draft process. They also had 3 7th-rounders. They drafted a fullback, Derek Parrish, with pick 240. Also, a couple of linemen, 1 offensive, 1 defensive, with Hodges and Vohask, 2 guys who, again, you need to get some depth there. So I'm assuming that's just all that they're doing there is, hey, you got to fill up the bodies there. They're starting it early by drafting some guys in round 7 who, at least will be cheap for 4 years, cheap depth. That's the value there. So as a whole, some things I liked about this draft for sure. I definitely think kind of the middle rounds, they kind of saved it. I really didn't love some of these selections, but, again, Balky and me, we just have different philosophies on how you should build a team. So given his philosophy and how he wants to attack this, I actually think he did a pretty good job. And maybe that's the way I should evaluate it, is not did they do what I would do, but did he accomplish what he was trying to accomplish? And he did. So I'll give him credit for that. So yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on the Jaguars draft? What are your thoughts on my thoughts on the Jaguars draft? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.